What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Adulthood Is, the podcast where I, your host, Jason Lynn, try to understand and act as the arbiter to the question of what adulthood is and means to you, me, and everybody else. I had the wonderful privilege for this episode of talking to Robert Lunte, the master vocal coach, clinician, author, singer himself. He is the founder and owner of the Vocalist Studio, which you can find at thevocaliststudio.com, where he teaches courses. You can even find him over at udemy.com. He does a course over there, one-on-ones and different clinician workshops. He is currently, as we speak, over in Germany, Italy, and France this month in April. So if you are listening, and I know there are quite a few of you out there, especially in Germany and France, who are listening, if you have ever wanted to learn more about working your voice, controlling your voice, and just having a more pronounced confidence within your speaking voice or your singing voice, check it out. I will have all the links in the show notes for today at adulthoodis.com. And like I said before, Robert is the founder of the Vocalist Studio. The vocaliststudio.com is a globally recognized place where he has 20 years plus experience. I say place, but it's for trained professionals, to beginners, to learn about singing techniques. It's a place for all vocalists, and that's what this conversation's about. It's about understanding that it's not just singing that our vocals matter, that our voice matters. And I really wanted to have somebody like Robert on to talk about just that subject of how important our voice is to everyday life and maintaining it and practicing it. We talk a lot on this podcast about growing up, and we talk a lot, I think, in the general conversation, the cultural conversation about mindfulness and keeping a well-trained, a well-practiced, exercised mind now, keeping it healthy and everything else. We talk about our bodies and keeping them healthy, keeping our diets and nutrition right. We talked about that on the podcast in great depth, but a lot of conversations don't cover our communication, our tool of communicating per se, our voice, training it, warming it up, keeping it safe, making it smoother, deeper, whatever it might need to have more control in our conversations if we're speaking at public speaking engagements, if we want to be the vlogger or the blogger or radio host or podcaster, whatever it might be, you have that tool. And we oftentimes, I'm guilty of it, don't focus enough on it. So Robert talks a lot about that with me and how to rethink about the way we think about our voice. And that's what a lot of his things, like his online course and training book, which has been published in 120 countries, called The 4 Pillars of Singing. You can find it online now, again, at his website. And it offers just a unique, personalized vocal studio training method that really helps build those muscle memory, motor skills, and strength and coordination stuff to expand your vocal range, have that endurance to speak and to do long speaking engagements if you're not a singer, or if you're a singer, it does help your vocal range and your agility as well. It's a very all-encompassing book, and I recommend, being not a singer myself, looking at it and researching it and investing a little bit in it, because it will only help your confidence and your abilities to control and dictate conversation and make you a more effective communicator. Because we can all read Dale Carnegie 1,000 times, but if we don't know how to tap into our natural voice and how to control it, then it doesn't have the same power and brevity that it could. So without further ado, I urge you to go check out Robert at thevocaliststudio.com and see him in one of his master classes. He is on the road now. He is overseas as we speak. And listen to this podcast. I will see you at the end of it, where we'll go over more of this. But without further ado, here's my interview with the master vocal coach himself. Thank you so much, Robert, for doing this. I want to open this up and explain to anybody listening who you are if they don't already know. You are the founder of the Vocalist Studio, which is a globally recognized vocal coaching clinician workshop that you run. You're an author, you're a singer yourself of over 20 years. Is that still correct, or is it even higher now, without sounding offensive to that realm? That's an impressive amount of years.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And I've been doing this for nearly 20 years.
Okay.
As a voice coach or expert on singing and public speaking. I've been a voice coach for nearly 20 years. But when we say voice coach, after 20 years, it's sure there's lessons. Me, teacher, you student, you come in for a lesson, I give you a one-on-one lesson. That's sort of the obvious thing that people envision when you say voice teacher, voice coach. No doubt, I've done thousands and thousands of hours of that. But I also do far more than that as well. I'm the author of a best-selling book called The 4 Pillars of Singing. It's a book and an online course that has been sold in over 90 countries around the world. It offers a methodology for teaching singers and public speakers how to train, how to work out, to become coordinated and build motor skills, have a more animated and amplified voice. And in pursuit of spreading that method around the world, we also teach teachers. I do master classes and speaking events. So that's what I do as a voice coach. Voice coach, author, coursework creator, master class dude.
It unpacks into some incredible accomplishments by all means. And I think that's where I want to start this is you're talking about all these things that are within themselves huge accomplishments. But then again, like we talked about before we started recording today, and I want to rehash that, is a lot of people don't know what vocal coaching necessarily is, or don't realize that anybody from a singer to a public speaker, like let's say anybody as big as maybe a Tony Robbins, has a vocal coach at some point in time. So what is vocal coaching, and why do you think it goes so unnoticed?
Yeah, no, great question. Vocal coaching, the depth of what is vocal coaching, we could go on for hours about that. I promise that I won't. But I think in a simple definition would be that, first of all, there's vocal coaching, and then there's teaching vocal training. So coaching and training tend to be two different things. Vocal training tends to sort of refer to technique training, which is implying the athleticism, the motor skills building, the strength building, and the motor skills work required through techniques, singing scales, working out, through singing scales and vocal leads to make the physiology of the voice more animated, more amplified, and healthier, both for singers and for public speakers. Now, voice coaching, which is something I also do in the singing world, that would be bringing your songs, and we work on interpretation of your songs and helping you to make a better performance or better interpretation of your art and your music. Voice coaching for public speakers would be similar, how to be animated and better amplified as a public speaker, how to capture your audience attention, how to use volume, prosody, and silence to add interest to your presentation and your speech. So that's coaching. So coaching is sort of the presentation, and teaching technique is sort of teaching people how to train and practice to get healthier and stronger.
So looking at this and looking at vocal coaching, and it's such a huge breadth of things you can do, but thinking about being a kid, a teenager, or in that mindset of wanting to figure out what we want to do with our lives. A lot of the people listening obviously are young professionals or young adults maybe coming out of high school who I'll be honest, Robert, I don't hear a lot of people in my profession come to me and say, what I want to do in life is be a vocal coach. What's your origin story to this? Where did you find the passion for this? Have you always had it, or did you come about it from maybe a back door?
Sort of a back door. As probably most coaches will tell you, it came from a love and a desire and a passion for singing. In particular, I'm a kid from the 80s, So I was very much inspired by male rock and metal singers that would sing super high in the head voice. So Judas Priest, Queensryche, Journey, Iron Maiden, all of that sort of approach to singing is what really got me excited when I was a kid. Now we're talking about, at the age of 15 and 16 years old. So I started down this path of learning how to sing, and that put me into working with voice coaches. Now, early on, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with the late Maestro David Kyle. Maestro Kyle is a famous voice coach here from Seattle, Washington. He passed away in 2004, but he's responsible for teaching Lane Staley from Alice in Chains, Chris Cornell, Ann Wilson from Heart, Jeff Tate from Queensryche, Ronnie Monroe from Metal Church, myself, and other great singers you may have never even heard of before. So early on, I had an opportunity to be exposed to really one of the greatest voice coaches, contemporary voice coaches of all time. Fast forward, went to school, sang in bands, had a lot of fun with that, graduated from school, University of Miami, where I actually trained with Dr. Alt, classical singing for a few years. It's not really my thing, but I got some value and benefit from it, and joined the workforce. At that time, I just really wanted to be a singer in a band. It was my hobby. It was my thing, and got a day job. And I wanted to make a little extra money. That's what I wanted to do. And when the internet first came on board and started growing and it imploded, at the time I was a sales guy, technology sales guy, I needed a way to pay my bills. I needed a way to feed myself. So I thought, well, I'm going to try teaching people how to sing. Never done it before, but can't be that difficult. And I started teaching people how to sing, or started giving voice lessons. At that time, I wasn't that great. I was a beginner voice coach, had a lot to learn. But about 3 years into it, when I got into my stride and got a rhythm going, something happened. 3 students on the weekend turned into 6, 6 turned into 12, 12 turned into 24. Before I knew it, I was blown out over the entire weekend. And so my return customers and referrals were out of control. I discovered that teaching people how to train to become singers, working with singers, was something that I had a gift for. It was not something I planned. I did not come out of college and say, I want to be a professional voice coach. I wasn't doing that either. It's only when I started dabbling in it that I realized I have a gift for this. So I wrote a book, the first version of the 4 Pillars of Singing. We're on version 5.0 now, but at that time it was version 1.0, and was probably one of the first voice coaches to offer videos on YouTube, video training content. It was just a sort of a fun experiment to see what would happen, and it did very well. Out of that, I then picked up some sponsors, TC Helicon, a company that makes stomp boxes and pads for singers, and Rode Microphones, who is a company out of Australia who's endorsed me for years, got behind me, and I started doing master classes. So essentially, it was just something I was dabbling with on the side, and I discovered I was really super good at it, and it blew up, and it became this thing that I had to, by sort of destiny, I don't want to sound corny, but it's absolutely true. I literally had a moment in my life when I was teaching and working a day job at the same time. And there was a period of time in my life when I had to do some soul searching, and I thought to myself, this isn't really what I planned to do. It wasn't by design, but this is really taking off, and I'm really good at it, and it's fun. I enjoy it. But I said to myself, the world is sort of speaking to me for some reason, and I'm not a religious guy at all, but I just realized that there was somebody or something was telling me that this is what I need to do. This was my destiny. This was my purpose. I didn't set out for this to be my purpose. I didn't find it or make it. It found me. And it said, Robert, this is your purpose on the planet. You are the guy that has to do. You're the guy who needs to do this. We're choosing you to be the voice coach, dude. I accepted that. I said, okay, fine. Then I submit. I will be a voice coach. I will take this talent and this intuition that I have for it as far as I can go and write a book and do courses. And, 15 years later, I'm still doing it, and it's been a lot of fun. That's my story.
Amazing, and not corny or divinely inspired at all. I think that's great, because I think there's a great quote that I love and I use for my own life and telling my own story by the writer of the books The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Douglas Adams. And he says, we don't always end up going in life where we wanted to go, but somehow we always end up going right where we needed to be. And I think that really applies here to you, is what it sounds to me. And
yeah, I want to add to that. Not only where I needed to be, but where I just happened to notice where others needed me.
Yes, that's a great addition.
I felt a sense of responsibility. I felt a sense of obligation. Like, all right, the world wants me to do this. Fine, I'll do this. This is what it's my calling. It's what people want me to do.
That brings me to a really great question then to segue, which is, so if I'm just listening to you and me talk right now and I'm not a singer, maybe I want to be, maybe I don't want to be, but so many of us, I know myself included, were born under the precepts that you're either born a singer or you're not. You either have the voice or you don't. Is that a misconception? Is that a misnomer? And if so, would you elaborate on your experiences with maybe that misconception?
Well, Jason, that's a great question, and it's a testament to your intuition as an interviewer. And it's profound. I'm glad we get a chance to talk about that. The general population is a general statement, but most people think that you're either born with it or you're not. That you're either born to be able to sing or you're not. And then when we watch these shows or we listen to our heroes sing and they sound absolutely amazing, most people presume, well, that's just what they were born with. No. There is a certain element of gift and intuition that one singer may have over the other, and singer A may not have to work quite as hard to get to a certain note versus singer B. But all of us have to train and practice, some maybe a little more than others. But there's nobody that, I don't want to say nobody. There's a few, I suppose, but very few people. I'm being completely honest. There are some exceptions, but even the ones where I'll make an exception for them, they'll get tired and their problems catch up to them sooner or later. Everybody needs, or at least benefits greatly from vocal training and vocal technique. It's a real industry. It's something that singers and teachers have been doing for over 400 years. And here's why. Because singing is an athletic endeavor. This is a sport. It sits inside a family of sports that shares the same space as, say, gymnastics or ice skating or maybe dance versus, say, rugby or boxing. And that is to say that it requires great physical strength and motor skills, but at the same time, it's judged by its aesthetic beauty. So it's an art and an athletic endeavor together. And singing is a athletic endeavor. I'm not trying to be cute. I'm not trying to be sort of coy about this. It is athletic endeavor. It is repetition, motor skills, muscle memory, strength building. And that's what my program, by the way, the 4 Pillars of Singing, is all about. In fact, our catch line we've used for years is we train vocal athletes. And the whole point in that statement is, if you want to become a better singer or a better public speaker, here's a book, here's a course, here's a coach, and people that can help you learn how to train to become stronger with these techniques and these scales and things, to become stronger so that you can present and sing better.
So I think there's two things when we're talking about people who maybe aren't feeling confident to think they are born singers that they deal with. And so the first thing I want to kind of go over is, if I don't have that confidence to say that I want to be a singer, or I want to just get better at speaking, like public speaking, how do I grasp that confidence to come in to get training from somebody like you, or to go and get your book, The 4 Pillars of Singing, or go to one of your master classes? Because I have to have that confidence to overcome that. Do you have any tips or actionable items that people can maybe meditate on, for lack of a better term, to get to that point?
Sure. To take that first critical step, which might be find the coach, purchase the book, purchase the course, doesn't really take confidence. It takes courage. It takes courage. You have to step up and go, all right, I'm gonna just try. I'm just gonna jump off the high dive and just go. Now, the confidence comes from 2 things. It comes from, well, probably more than 2, but I would say 1, knowing that the program, the book, the course, and the teacher you're working with have a proven track record and that you're going to get results. That builds confidence. 2, the kinesthetic feedback that you get for yourself as you begin to train these techniques and practice these techniques, you literally feel your voice getting stronger. It's not vague. It's not a benign experience. You feel the vocal cords squeezing harder. You feel the voice amplifying better. You in about 4 weeks on my program, you're going to be experiencing significant, noticeable physical changes. That's going to build confidence. And then the other thing that builds confidence is feedback. Feedback from your audience, feedback from your band members, feedback from the management team. If you're speaking to a group of sales guys or whatever your case may be, it's feedback from your audience.
In this podcast, I like to make myself the guinea pig here, Robert. So let's take myself, for example, doing a podcast like this. And maybe I want to practice my public speaking part of it, or maybe I secretly want to be a singer and that's what I want to go do. And I decide that I'm going to go, I'm going to read your book and I'm going to go to your master classes, or I'm going to go one-on-one with you. What do those first steps look like for taking lessons with you? How long? You said 4 weeks, you can already start to see results and stuff, but what's those first steps that somebody has when they go to a vocal coach that they can expect?
Well, the first steps would be probably wildly different based on who you go to. If you're going to go to me or one of my certified instructors, those first steps are very often, but the first 2 to 4 weeks are really vocal health and rehabilitation period of time. You're not even on first base yet, but you're halfway there. You're running to first base. So there would be a set of workouts, warm-ups, and things that we do, techniques that we do with pre-recorded piano scales and videos of me demonstrating how to do it in the course that are designed to get your vocal folds, vocal cords, or vocal folds, and the little tiny muscles around them. I'm oversimplifying, but I want to keep it simple for you guys. And your respiratory system coordinated, optimized, and balanced. Right? Truly get your voice off the couch and get it running around the track. Because the speaking voice, for most people, the majority of people, is a lazy position. It's a default lazy position. When we speak, unknowingly, it's all very, very much in the subconscious, but when we speak through a lifetime of speech, it's really a lifetime of making the required amount of phonation with the least amount of effort. You can imagine, you can kind of see how the body would default to that. It does in other aspects as well. Well, these little tiny muscles inside the voice will sit back and slouch on the couch, and we'll do just enough to get by and communicate through the day in speech mode. We call it speech mode. Okay? But when we're talking about being a public speaker, or even more athletic requirements, being a singer, then we take that same mechanism and we begin to run around the track with it. We make it lift weights. We do resistance training, scales, and workouts, and we build endurance, and we make those little muscles come to life again. And it's amazing what can happen. Truly, this is not a sales pitch. It's unbelievable. It's probably one of the things that keeps me doing this through the years. It's watching somebody who comes in with a windy voice or a voice that kind of hurts, or a voice that's very throaty and doesn't amplify and doesn't resonate nicely, and watch them go through transformation from in about 2 to 4 weeks, where that voice begins to stand up straight and begins to amplify and have color, and the physical pain and stress goes away, the tension goes away they've been experiencing, and then you've got basically a healthy instrument, a healthy mechanism. And then from that point forward, say you're on first base and begin to round to second base, then we begin to just build upon that, especially if you're a singer. For public speakers, that's about all you need. The first chapter, or the first sort of 4 to 6 weeks of training that my singers go through, is just about all a public speaker really needs to be one of the most animated and dynamic public speakers that anybody could, as far as their voice and how their voice sounds and is projecting, can be.
So you kind of already touched on it right there, but I do want to ask the question just to point the conversation in that direction for your insights on it, is why is it important to train your voice if you aren't a singer, if you are a public speaker? Why does it matter? You talked about the sport of it, and I think that's probably the greatest reason, but is there any other reasons why it matters for me to be a manager and then go get vocal lessons so I can speak to my, like you said, sales team or something?
Well, do you want to command your audience? Yeah. So if you're a host of a talk show like yourself, you want a voice that amplifies and that is animated with its prosody, and you want to be able to do this all day long without fatigue. So endurance, prosody, which is sort of the inflections of volume, animation, and color. These are all things that hit the audience or the listener on a subconscious level that feeds back to you as somebody that has command and control of what they have to say and what they're doing. And for some folks on a real practical basis, for some folks, it hurts when I talk. I'll get people come in here, it hurts when I talk, or it's all windy. I mean, really, really serious problems that can be fixed from this. Someone like yourself who has a nice speaking voice, you just be building upon something that's already a nice foundation. So, for example, I can tell by listening to your voice that if you trained some of these techniques, we could get you to amplify a little bit better and potentially have just a touch. And I'm totally geeking out right now. And by the way, I think you have a nice speaking voice, but I'm geeking out. But with the training, you could get a touch of a little bit more of a warm or darker overtone in the color of your speaking voice. Just a touch. Not take anything away, but add to it. And would that be something that's interesting to you? I don't know. You'd have to tell me. But that's the sort of thing that I can do for someone like yourself that's already got a nice foundation. But for some people can't even talk. They walk in, it's just all hot wind.
Right.
They need help.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you was, how do you self-assess yourself? How do you come and say, well, I know I have a good foundation, or I know I hate my voice and I know it's bad to everybody else? Are there techniques that somebody can do to kind of self-assess in the bathroom or something?
Well, when you're not really a trained expert, I guess you could, but it's how reliable is that information? All you can do is just sort of go off on a hunch, right? Well, I think I got a problem. I think I could sing better. I think I have something going for me, but I'd like to get better. The assessment and the diagnosis really comes. That's one of the things people are paying for with me, is my ears. And this is interesting. I think it's geeky, but it's interesting. Hopefully your listeners would dig it. What really great voice coaches, one of the things that great voice coaches can do is we sort of see inside the voice or hear inside the voice. We know what the physical problem is with the voice, and therefore what techniques need to be applied to fix the problem. By listening to the sound color of the voice, the sound color of your voice or a singer's voice has information in it. And if you know how to decrypt and interpret that information that the sound color is giving you, the coach, then you'll be able to hear the symptoms and you'll be able to fix the problem if you have the right techniques. What do I mean by sound color? Technically, the sum total of all the amplified partials and harmonics in any given vocal sound. So this is one sound color. A. All right. In a lesson, I might say, and my students would have they would understand. They're kind of familiar with this. We might say that that's the sound color of A, as an egg. So it's kind of A-ishness sound color. This is another sound color. Ah. Okay. That is the sound color of ah or ah-ishness. All right. Are you with me still,
with
Jason?
You.
Am I losing
I'm
you?
with you.
Okay. So there's A-ishness, and there's ah-ishness, and uh-ishness, and o-ishness, and this is also a sound color. That's a sound color too, isn't it? It's not a lovely color. It's not a lovely vowel color like I gave you in the other examples.
It's like a brown.
Color. Yeah, it's ugly. And what it's telling you, because I made it really obvious, it's telling all of us, is that there's distortion. There's tissue that's grinding. There's something wrong inside. That sound color is, there's something wrong with inside. Tissue grinding, not enough mask, resonant, other things. I mean, I could list like 10 things wrong with that sound. It's an example. I'm exaggerating to make a point. But that's what we mean by sound color. So singers will come in, or speakers will come in, and they begin to talk, or they sustain a nice note, and they present a color. And that color, inside that color, or sometimes without vowels or singing vowels, when we say vowels, it's a metaphor for color, is inside there, if you know how to decrypt it, are the symptoms of the problem. So it's my ears have been trained to hear that, and in that I can tell. When I listen to you, I can tell, well, you need more compression on your vocal cords, or you need less compression on your vocal cords, or you need to increase your respiration and move the resonance forward to your mask so you can amplify and animate better. In your case, if you moved a little bit more respiration and worked on some of the techniques in my program, you would get a higher closed quotient on your vocal folds, which means you'd get more surface area on your vocal folds. You would build the muscle and the fat of the vocalist system. And in doing so, that would give you a little bit more warmth and a little bit more darkness to your speaking voice, if you cared to do that. And I can simply tell by listening to the color of your speaking voice today.
Okay, so let's take it from here, and let's say you've convinced me now. I'm going to attend one of your master classes, which I want to talk about. Congratulations. You'll be in Germany, Italy, and I believe France in April. Is that correct? For a 4-week tour, right?
That's right. I'll be there with my teachers and partners in those countries and our sponsor, Rode Microphones, out of Australia, who is generously helping us to get there and giving everybody a free $500 wireless mic for coming to our event. It's going to be great. So if you come to the event, you'll get fantastic vocal technique training, no doubt about that. That's to probably ever get in your entire life, I'd like to say. But you'll also walk with a free $500 wireless microphone. It's a great deal. We're going to have a lot of fun. When I get back to town, we're going to do a 6-day boot camp in Seattle as well for the Vocal Athlete Intensive.
Perfect. And I'll have all those events up on the show notes if anybody's interested. I know we have some listeners out in Italy that I've heard from before, so make sure to get out there. So I wanted to backtrack then. I want to say I'm now ready to go to your master class. I'm ready to commit. I'm ready to move forward with this. What do I need to bring? Besides my voice, what do I need to prepare to come into my first master class?
Get a lot of sleep. Don't eat a lot of slimy foods before you come in, like milk and nuts and bananas and things like that. Probably have your karaoke tracks, your music on little flash drives ready to go when we get to the coaching part. And hey, if you're already a student of my program, the 4 Pillars of Singing, then do the warm-ups and get ready before you come so that your voice is sort of the blood flowing and your vocal folds are pumped up and you're warmed up and ready to go. And positive mental attitude.
I think that might be the most important one just in general. I want to shift away from vocals and geeking out and getting in the weeds with you. I'm loving it, but I want to posture into asking you, So singing and music in general is often an incredible outlet, a hobby for a lot of people to express themselves and get away from their day job, like you said earlier on, no matter what age we are. However, I'm curious for you, Robert, how do you unwind and relax? Because I can't imagine singing is necessarily what you escape singing with.
That's an interesting perspective. There's sort of a sad clown element to the work that I do. Okay. And what I mean by that is my students, and it seems like everybody gets enough time to go out and sing except for the guy that's teaching everybody to go sing. I'm so busy with book and the course and the tours and the speaking and the interviews and all of this and the administration of things that I don't get as much time as you would think to sing, just to actually do it. And I do love it. Not all voice coaches sing, by the way. Actually, most don't, which I find to be sort of odd. But I am one of the rare voice coaches that does sing, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And I love it. I really do enjoy it. In particular, I love recording. I have beautiful microphones and nice facility in my studio. And when I get a chance, oftentimes on Friday nights at the end of an 11-hour day of teaching, you'd think I'd be dead beat tired, but I'm actually really warmed up by the end of the day. And that's when I pull out my reflection filter and my microphones and my tracks, and I start recording. There's a lot of projects and things that I'm working on from other producers and musicians that are sort of waiting on me to get my vocal parts done. So the short answer is I do love singing, and I would like to have more time to do it. In the last couple of years, I'm finding more time to do it because that course and that book that I keep referring to is finally sort of done, and now I can go back to finding more time to sing. So that's one thing. The other thing I love to do is I'm sort of a science geek. I'm big on documentary content. Sometimes I tell my friends and my students that if I wasn't a voice coach in this life and I could do math halfway decent, which I can't. I can barely do ninth grade math. But if I could do math halfway decent, I would have absolutely loved to be sort of a professional theoretical physicist or an astronomer. I love physics, science, space, cosmology. Just absolutely love cosmology and astronomy. So I go to groups and meetups and things where there's whole other crowd of geeks, a whole different other crowd of geeks that I feel at home with, and they talk about astronomy and cosmology. So sort of that keeps me busy. So yeah, singing, science, my motorcycle, skating.
Absolutely sounds like a lot of that scientific aspect you're talking about, I can hear now permeating through you getting into the weeds about what you love to do, which is vocal coaching, which is awesome to see kind of the thread work through all your different interests. I just have 3 more quick questions for you, Robert, kind of a rapid fire thing. You can answer them as long as you want, but they're smaller questions.
Okay.
The first one is a simple one. It's what's your favorite song to sing, to warm up to?
My favorite song, there's several, but first thing that sort of comes to mind is Lights by Journey. So early Journey, Steve Perry, Lights. It's just a great song to sort of warm up and get through.
What about your favorite resources and they don't have to be vocal coaching or vocal related, but your favorite book or documentary to share with somebody to get them interested in things?
To get them interested in singing and vocal training, or just get them interested in anything?
Yeah, just anything really. It doesn't have to be necessarily vocal related. What's your favorite gift to give as far as giving a book or giving a recommendation?
Yeah, cool question. I highly recommend Cosmos by Carl Sagan and the original Cosmos series, not the new one with
the Neil deGrasse Tyson one.
Not his, not that one. But the old school original Carl Sagan Cosmos series and his book Cosmos. It's just great. It changed my life.
My last question I ask everybody who comes on the podcast, and you're no exception, Robert. Everybody has an inner child, and so I always want to ask people, what is something that they collect, obsess over, and you've talked about something a little bit there, but what is something you collect, obsess over, maybe spend too much time or money on, that's totally fulfilling an inner child thing or extravagance that excites you like you were as a child?
I don't know if it's a secret or not, but you prepared me for this question, and I think it's a fun question, and I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, I don't really collect teddy bears, and I'm not really, something like that, and I tried to think of a kind of a real genuine, honest answer about that, and well, this is my answer. One, in terms of collecting, I collect microphones, the nice ones, the ones that have been given to me, but I also sometimes go out to eBay and just find old, used microphones from the 70s and the 60s that look cool. They don't have to sound great. I've got great sounding mics. It's not really about sounding great anymore. I got those. It's really just the industrial design. I don't know why, but I have sort of a fetish for microphones, how they're built, how they're designed, what they look like. To me, a microphone is like a motorcycle. It has a function, but it also has a sort of beauty to it in its design. So I collect mics. In terms of something that's childlike, there isn't anything in particular. I think that I'm sort of like, there's an element of play to the work that I do. And so I kind of get the opportunity to, being in the creative world and being a singer, I get plenty of time to sort of play and have fun. I don't need to break out and go do something that's childlike. There's a sort of playfulness and childlike abandonment about the work that I do. Certain elements of it, not all of it, of course. Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. I think I not only the microphones, but the other half of it too, because I think if we're doing what we love to do and it's fulfilling the childish, or not childish, but inner child within us in our work, that's even more amazing than having it as a collection or hobby. So I think that's great. Robert, my last thing is, thank you so much for doing this, obviously, but where can people find you if they want to reach out to you, connect with you, work with you, or just watch your career?
Well, I would recommend that you go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. I've got about 300 videos there. I've been a YouTube creator for about 8 years. You can sort of watch the progression of my career and the book and the methodology on the videos. They start off with a kid with long hair in Carhartt pants, all the way up to the guy you're talking to now with a haircut and a little bit more maturity. So you can find me on YouTube. The program and the training and the course can be found. The full version is at my website, thevocaliststudio.com. And then there's sort of a light version, a less expensive light version that's out at udemy.com, which is a online coursework platform. And really run my name in Google, and you'll get lots of stuff you can read about. And that's where you can find me.
Well, cool. Thank you so much again, Robert, for doing this. I really appreciate it, because I think it's important for people to remember, like you said, the voice is a muscle and we use it for so many things, yet, like you said, we get lazy with it and we neglect it. So I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk with us and educate us on how important this subject really is, and underappreciated, I think, that it goes.
Well, thank you, Jason, for the opportunity for giving me the opportunity to get the message out, the very message that you just described, that the voice can be trained and vocal health can be fixed. And if you want to take it to its extremes as a singer, you can even learn to do that, provided that you have the right techniques and you get after it and practice it and do the work. It's available. And I'd love to help anybody listening to this program that wants to know more about it.
I want everybody to take from this kind of what I took from it, or at least reflect on it. This was a really cool episode for me to talk to Robert of the Vocalist Studio because it was different from what we usually have on here. We usually have people who are directly connected with things we usually think about when we're growing up or progressing our lives and stuff like that. And we don't often think of singing or speaking, vocal training as the general arc there, as something we need to worry about. And it wasn't something that I even worried about. So don't feel like I'm connecting you to a world you never knew about that everybody else knew about. It's not some secret society. But it was something that I came across when starting this podcast, as it started to feel really important because of all the different things that I was doing in my career and still continue to do, the public speaking and the constant meeting and networking with people and pitching and sales and all this other stuff that goes with it, and the podcast. And getting better at utilizing my voice became a very essential thing, and not wearing my voice out as well. And I started to think about, well, we have physical wellness, we have mindfulness, mental wellness, we have nutrition and diet, internal health, conscious wellness. But who takes care of their voice besides vocalists or public speakers who speak every other day? Not many people. We don't think about it. And so talking with Robert about this stuff, it was incredible to hear, and I want you to really understand it and take away this one thing from our conversation. Look at your voice like you're an athlete that looks at their body. Take care of it that way because it will help. It'll build your endurance. It'll make you look at just what you're doing with it different and how you prepare it, rehearse it, reflect on it. You won't walk into a job interview, I promise, anymore after listening to this episode and not at least spend 5 minutes in your car warming up your voice to some degree so that you can talk with diction and enunciation and with rhythm and staccatos and all these different vocal techniques that musically make sense, but we never think about in other ways. And maybe singing helps you too. If you practice singing and you go, and I urge you to go to one of Robert's master classes, if you're overseas in Germany or France right now, he is there in April. Go to thevocaliststudio.com to find out more information. But also, if you're not and you just want to take one of his courses online at the website, or he has Udemy courses as well, which are very easy to find and very budget-friendly, conscious. I think they're around maybe $16.99 or less on Udemy, so they're great prices for the content you're getting. Or get his book and learn about these things, because what you might find, what I found, was researching this stuff and researching vocals in general and the voice. I was never a singer, don't get me wrong. I have a lower timbre, but not a pitch-perfect singing voice by any means, and I never knew my range. I remember once in high school we had to do a vocal test, and we all got called in one by one to face a group of people, and we were given a note. We had to catch the note, and we had to sing Happy Birthday. And the only comment after we were all said and done was my professor, my teacher of that class, Mr. Weaver, God bless him. He was a great teacher, and I would love to have him on this podcast. That gives me a great idea for a new episode. Mental note and real note in the future. But he looked at me and gave me this quirky little grin and like I know you know how bad that was, Jason, but let's mutually agree that we're just going to move forward. And he said, I don't think I've ever met somebody that has had less of a range vocally than you did, because I maybe sung like 3 half steps and then back and forth. I just don't sing. I was great at playing drums. I was great at playing all the orchestral stuff you want, and I'm good at picking up piano, picking up guitar, whatever. I can do the instruments, but the voice, I never had that. And that comes a lot with confidence and practice and something I didn't understand, which was building it like an athlete. And it takes that. And I think it's really cool to think of, because you might find that you want to sing more after you do stuff like this. So check out Robert's Vocalist Studio. Check out all his offerings online. He has so much content. That's great content that you got to check out if you're even remotely interested in building this. And I really think you should. And I will leave it at that. I really think we all need to remember that this should be a mix in with our pyramid of overall health. We have our physical, mental, internal, spiritual maybe, and vocal. And with that, I'll see you next week.